This radio show is a paid placement. Welcome to Wealth Michigan with the McIntoshes. I'm Mark Elliott. Mindy McIntosh, the founder and president of McIntosh and Associates, started the company back in 2004. Nolan McIntosh, he'll help you with your market investments. Are you taking too much risk in your portfolio? Not enough risk, or the right amount for you? And that's certainly a big concern for today's retirees. A lot more volatility we're seeing along Wall Street. Mindy is kind of your safe person, right? Income, life, health insurance, Medicare, big concern for retirees. There's so many options. How in the world do we even figure out what we should be doing? And then Mindy and Nolan will team up to help you with being more tax efficient moving forward. So there's a lot of moving parts here. When can I retire? Do I have enough? Will my money last as long as I do? Will my loved ones be okay if something happens to me? Those are really big questions. Really, at the end of the day, we just want to know, if we retire, are we going to be okay? Well, that's what McIntosh and Associates are all about. They're here to help you figure that out, create the plan by using the Dream Focused Wealth Plan for you. So it's really about you when you come in and sit down. They're going to sit on the same side of the table. They can help you in the investment world. They can help you in the insurance world. But really, it's about having a plan when it comes to retirement. Give you a little confidence and clarity moving forward. You can always find out more about Mindy, Nolan, and the team just by going to wealthmichigan.com, wealthmichigan.com. If you have any questions, we'll give you the number throughout the program. But it's 877-222-8849. There's no cost. There's no obligation. There is no pressure. The team's here to help if they can. 877-222-8849. Mindy, how are you?
Doing well. Just, trying to keep every day a new day. Spring is not going to be too far from here, we say. So
no.
Why not?
Yeah.
4 weeks, always hope.
Spring break. Yeah.
Spring break, yeah. When is spring break for the kids?
Last week of March. So, yeah. So that's coming soon for them.
Yeah. All right. Well, good. Now, let's talk. There's a lot going on in the world. We get that, right? Russia, Ukraine. I'm not going there, but there's certainly people that have family in the military. You guys even have people that are in the military. It'd be a little nerve-wracking for sure. But for retirees, for seniors, my guess is inflation has maybe got them a little nervous. We talked about, I think it was January 2021 to January of 2022, inflation was 7.5%. So things are going up. And there was a survey, Mindy, from the Senior Citizens League that says inflation is having a massive impact on seniors. Now, this, I'm thinking, is not your clients. This would be people that probably are still trying to figure out how in the world they can retire. Half have spent down their emergency savings. 48% have had to visit a food pantry or apply for food stamps. 44% have run up credit card debt. 23% need help with energy bills. I don't think that's typically the client of McIntosh and Associates, but it is a challenge, especially if you're trying, I hope I can retire. I know I need a little bit more. And then inflation hits, and now it even puts you in more of a hole. That's not good, is it?
Absolutely not. And we have now more than ever, yes, there is a lot going on in the world. We're definitely in some different type of times now again here. And a lot of folks do come in, and a lot of times initially what they're really asking, Mark, is, sometimes their focus is, hey, I've been working for, XYZ company for 25 to 35 years, and I'm really ready to retire, but how would I even find health insurance? I've always had it provided to me, or what will my Medicare look like, or where and when and how do I turn on Social Security and move my, 401k that I've been contributing to? So the big thing is actually starting with a plan. So here, we always mention what's called our Dream Focused Wealth Plan, and having a process to walk through to actually design and build a plan. I was just talking to an individual about, last week here about, gosh, I'm 65. I still want to keep working. Just turned 65 this month. Why is everybody telling me there's going to be penalties if I don't enroll in Medicare and I have group health care plans? What do I do? So we actually had to focus on how do we create a plan. So her initial concern was penalties because she doesn't want to retire yet. She wants to stay on her group health plan. But they also have not even thought about when they're going to start Social Security, what their income plan will look like in retirement, or how do those retirement years actually look. So they said, yes, oh my goodness, we need to develop a plan. So as we circle back to that, the trouble is that some folks don't realize that inside of retirement, even with cost of living adjustments and such with Social Security, on average, we are seeing, due to, even some recent studies, about 30% of Social Security, so one portion of their income, is spent on healthcare. And it doesn't mean that what you're seeing the doctor for today or your medications today or even the monthly premium or cost to you, it just happens to be that over year, we see the cost of Medicare Part B go up, some of the plan premiums go up, co-pays may go up. So we need to make sure that we are taking a look and we're hedging that inflationary risk to make sure that if you worked 30 years, we need to plan for 30 plus years in retirement. And inflation is something that if we don't establish that plan and create a steady guaranteed income stream, not just Social Security, to fund healthcare and their other expenses and inflation and taxes, then, it's going to be some more problems down the road. So I can't stress more to, call us here at 877-222-8849 or go to wealthmichigan.com. We should start and establish the plan now, whether you're 1 year, 2 years, or 5 years from retirement. We want to get that plan in play.
Glad you're with us for Wealth Michigan with the McIntoshes, Mindy and Nolan. I'm Mark Elliott, and we're just kicking off the show. We've got a lot to get to today, so stay with us throughout this hour-long program. But I'm going to go to a more uplifting topic, Nolan, for you. And did you guys watch much of the Winter Olympics? I know a lot of people did not this year. I'm not a skier, and I'm not a track person, so I'm not a huge Olympic person, but I do watch from time to time and see some kind of fun things for sure. Did you watch much of the Winter Olympics?
Yeah. That was funny because the first time we turned it on was the luge, and I think the team was from Germany, but it was obviously solo, and they come out and they're pushing themselves off the starting gate, and then they flap their arms, and my oldest daughter goes, "Hey, Dad, that looks like and sounds like a walrus," because the team behind him's like, "Go, go, go, go," because they're speaking in German. So it sounded like a walrus when they're in there flapping their arms. So they loved it. So
All right,
the
well,
walrus luge.
Yeah, well, so here you go. We got some sound from Nick Baumgardner. You're like, well, who's Nick Baumgardner? Well, if you were watching the Olympics, you would know probably. U.S. snowboarder Nick Baumgardner. He won gold at this year's Winter Olympic Games in Beijing at the age of 40. It was his fourth Olympics, and no, he did not win gold in curling. So he never made the podium before in his previous 3 Olympics. But he partner mixed snowboard cross event is what he was in with his race partner Lindsey Jacob Ellis, who's 36. So kind of cool at the age of 40, he gets his very first gold along with his partner who's 36. Here's what Nick had to say about that.
As you get older, it's tough to watch the young kids kind of take over and try to push you out of the sport. So that hunger, it's strong. And as long as you're willing to put in the work and you still have the dedication for the hard work, you can really push yourself to a new level.
So I'm out of luck, Nolan. I'm 62. I have no drive like Nick Baumgardner. That's really cool, though. But do you ever get people that come in to talk with you and Mindy about retirement because they don't feel like they're appreciated much at work anymore? They really want to go younger, less salary or what have you. I mean, the work environment's changed because every generation. I remember being in high school. My dad and my granddad were really good athletes, and they would say, well, that's not how we played the game, and now I'm that person now, I feel like. Where they feel like they're getting pushed out a little bit?
Yeah. Well, getting back to Nick, I'm 42, so maybe I can join him. But anyway,
it's all about dedication.
I might have to pick up a snowboard first. I've always been a skier, so that might be the first thing. But I mean, I think even more so this day and age. Again, part of it is coronavirus. Has pushed them, and we just met with clients the other day. We're seeing more and more that they really are pushing to retire before that premier age of 59 and a half, and so that. For Mindy and I, it becomes more of a, it's not even a challenge. It's actually fun for us to create. How are we going to, provide income for somebody that no longer has an earned wage, but not necessarily, we can't necessarily maybe put it into an IRA because they're going to get penalized. And so from an income strategy standpoint, it really makes it interesting for us to be able to help plan for that. And so, and part of it's just because, some of these people have been working all their lives and maybe they're a mechanic or maybe they're in construction and they just understand that they want to still have some go-go years. And if the life expectancy is in their mid-80s and they're, debilitating themselves in their mid-50s, well, that's not a very good lifestyle for them now that's going to carry on forward. So I think that's part of it too, is depending on what job they're in. But there are, and I think there's some people that are just saying, okay, baby boomer age, I'm stepping out of the way, letting the new generation take over with everything that's happened, and we're okay with that. So we have to help them walk through that. And that's the, challenge for them is, from a mental standpoint is I've done this for 30, 40 years, and now I need to change my methodology of when I'm getting up, when I'm not, going to work, and where's my self-worth. And so we have to walk through that with them on a consistent basis, not only just, obviously financially, but on a, emotional and mental standpoint. But really, we have to be able to make sure that that steady income is there. And then obviously, with everything happening in today's world, making sure risks are where they're supposed to be. And, I just talked to a client the other day, and for whatever reason decided that he wanted to stay in the 401k, and now he's saying, I think I need to come back in because the 401k that I'm in just is not doing what I thought it was going to do, and he kind of stalled, and so now he knows he made that decision and probably didn't make that right decision, so we want to try and help him walk through that. So action's the biggest thing, especially when we see times like now. We don't want to freeze. We want to put things into play. So that's why it's so important that you give us a call. If right now things are scaring you and you're saying, hey, I want to get out of my current job, then I think it's time to give us a call at 877-222-8849 to really discuss how can we get there even if you're not 59 and a half.
We're just getting started with Wealth Michigan with the McIntoshes. Mindy and Nolan back with more right after this.
Who will help you get there? Wherever you want to go and whatever you want to do in retirement, McIntosh & Associates can help you get there. You do the dreaming, they do the planning. It's your retirement, but you need a guide. As you approach retirement, McIntosh & Associates can make sure you're on the path to retire on your terms. And once you're retired, they'll help you stay on course. Think of it as a roadmap for your retirement. The team at McIntosh & Associates wants you to have the retirement you've worked so hard for. Come in and meet with them today. They'll help you create a retirement roadmap that's tailored to your dreams, your lifestyle, and long-term financial goals. Call today at 877-222-8849 and schedule a visit. Call 877-222-8849. That's 877-222-8849. Firm offers insurance services. Investment advisory services offered only by duly registered individuals through AE Wealth Management, LLC.
Get started today to develop your own dream-focused wealth plan with the team at McIntosh & Associates. Schedule a complimentary first visit today. Call 877-222-8849.
Glad you're with us today for Wealth Michigan with the McIntoshes. Mindy McIntosh, Nolan McIntosh. I'm Mark Elliott. If you want to find out more about the team at McIntosh & Associates, go to the website. A lot of great information there, wealthmichigan.com, wealthmichigan.com. Mindy, I know on Facebook, you have a lot of things that you put out, a minute chat with Mindy or what have you. You do a lot of things. Are those things on the website, or how do they find your Facebook stuff?
Sure. So if they go to our website, wealthmichigan.com, or to our Facebook page, McIntosh & Associates, we continue to try to put educational information on there. It might be related to their current career. It could be related to times we're seeing in the market. Could be emotional or well-being. It might be something silly that you see from one of my daughters, or ways you can help your children or grandchildren. But we always want to educate first. So if you either visit the web or go to our Facebook page, you'll see those on there. And schedule a visit, with us. And we'd be happy to walk through any of maybe your hopes, dreams, goals, fears that you might have. And we'll walk through a process together that's complimentary. It doesn't cost you to start looking through and designing a plan, and then starting to be able to walk through that together and kind of hold you accountable and, walk alongside you as you go. So education is key, and we'd be happy to visit further with them there after they take a look.
So there you go, wealthmichigan.com, the website. You can follow McIntosh & Associates on Facebook. We're going to talk about the next 2 seconds. We're going to talk about small business. And we all know, whether you're a small business owner or you work for a big company or what have you, that retirement is kind of a challenge. We've never done it before. How do we know whether we're in a good shape or bad shape? Do we need to make a little more? We've already won the game. Where are we on that road to retirement? So we're going to spend some time talking about how you can prepare for retirement if you are not retiring from that big corporate job with the 401k, the pensions, and all that kind of stuff. And there's some alarming numbers that we're going to talk about. And Nolan, I'm going to start with you on this because these numbers come from SCORE. And it's an organization that supports small business owners. 34% of small business owners do not have a retirement savings plan. 40% don't believe they'll be able to retire by 65. Now, I'm thinking McIntosh & Associates is not a huge corporation. I'm thinking it's a small business, but you're in the retirement world, so I'm thinking you guys are a little bit more on top of a retirement savings plan. But there are a lot of challenges. We know about at least a third of small businesses went under because of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of challenges small business owners have right now, I would think.
Yeah, there's tons. I mean, simple things like you would never have to think you'd have to worry about employee retention. We've talked to small business owners that they put a job posting out there, and it used to be all these people that weren't even qualified for the job would apply for it, and they're saying we can't even get people to apply. So it's very interesting for small business owners, and I'll be honest with you, this honestly pushed some of these small business owners to the brink of saying, I don't want to deal with it anymore. I'm at the end of my term where I want to run the business anymore, and if there's no called succession plan, a business continuity plan, that's scary. And if there's no heirs, and unfortunately, as much as some of these business owners have kids, some of them they've seen what their parents went through, and they don't necessarily, especially recently, and they don't necessarily want to have to deal with it. So we've had a lot of talks with small business owners on business continuity plans, and it's true from a retirement standpoint. The old adage, unfortunately, I think, used to be claim as little as you can so that we don't have to pay as much taxes as a self-employed person. And now they're finally realizing, like, I want to retire, but my Social Security is so small. How am I going to make it? Because now, I'm getting less than $1,000 from Social Security because they didn't claim enough on income. So it's very interesting and a challenge. And so sometimes, we're playing a little bit of catch up with some of these small business owners that thought they were doing the right thing at the time, but now realize, 20, 30 years later that was not the right thing to do all these years. And now they have to try and catch up, and they're on their own, right? There's no corporate 401k, right? There's no pension plan for them. They have to do it on their own. And so that's why we have to get with them and say, okay, this is what we need to do. And this is what your financial plan looks like. And this is why we need income from here. And it's one of those things they're just like, well, I guess we're going to have to just change maybe our lifestyle. And we try not to do that with our clients. We try and make as much as we can for them to not have to change their lifestyle. But there's obviously some things that we'd have to walk through with them, and some realizations that, just because of what happened in the last 20, 30 years, that we need to make some changes on how that looks. But there's some that obviously have had some of their, kids that do want to take over, and they're holding their hand a little bit, and they're like, okay, what do we do? Do we, hold on and have them pay us for 5 years, or do we just sell it outright to them, or, do we just kind of stay employees forever and just, let them run the show, but we're just kind of part-timing? So there's a lot of different scenarios that we love to walk through, and that's kind of Mindy and I's, we're in it with them because we want to have our girls be able to take over the business, and what if they don't want to? So I think planning part of that business continuity plan is a big piece of that. And then obviously, again, since you're self-employed, some type of employer-sponsored plan to start contributing to that, so that way you can look at some retirement in the future. And again, we'd love to be able to talk with you here at, McIntosh & Associates, and it's just one phone call away, 877-222-8849.
So there was a January 2022 report from the National Federation of Independent Business that says optimism is at an all-time low, as 61% of small businesses were forced to increase prices to offset costs. Now, that's not the third that actually went under during the pandemic either. Those are the ones trying to fight through this. So, Mindy, I think a lot of small business owners might be ready to call it quits, as Nolan was talking about all those challenges. We're going to get into exit strategy a little bit more in the next segment. But there are some challenges, and certainly the pandemic has been a big part of this. What are some of the options for, as Nolan said, you can come up with your own retirement plan. What are some of the options? How does this play out?
Yeah, and it just depends on the size. So, if you're your own single employer, you don't have any employees at all, then a self-employed business owner with no employees, they can do, a 401k for themselves, a self-directed, and have different contribution limits and what they can put in. It's also very nice if they do that, if they have the Roth 401k option. We feel that is key these days to have that position available. Or maybe they're at a small business, and they have a SEP IRA or a simple IRA. Those are definitely going to be where at least one employee, of course, but less than 100. And those are ways to start saying, hey, let's carve out X percentage of our income today to be able to fund, the retirement realities that we want, depending on, where they're going to live, what inflation might look like later, taxation, what might their medical needs be inside of retirement. So we have to put some money away today to fund the future, because those places, and just like most these days, they aren't having a pension. And by contributing to these investment accounts, that creates your new pension. That's your income that you're going to be able to draw from in retirement to supplement Social Security, to pay for health care, to do the travel that you'd like to do. Some business owners as well, too, or depending on what your current income is, some of them want to make sure that they can have some tax-free income in retirement. So if they don't have the option to contribute to like a Roth IRA and their income limits are too high to be able to contribute to the tax-free route, then they can also fund an indexed life vehicle to be able to pull income, generally tax-free in retirement. So there's different things that we can look at of how to create a pension-like income. And, we can do this through some income analysis. If you've never done this before, have a visit with myself or the team here at McIntosh & Associates, or call us at 877-222-8849. Because if you are not contributing to something and you feel like, oh my goodness, with bills, how am I going to do this? On a recent minute that we did, we talked about, let's make sure you're paying yourself first, and we will help you to see how you can create and do that.
So, Nolan, what are some things that business owners, especially small business owners, or really anyone getting ready for retirement, what are some of the things they should consider when it comes to their lifestyle in retirement that they're trying to come up with a plan for?
Well, things you need to consider is obviously where's income coming from. That's a key, because no longer are they having that earned income. And the other part of it is sometimes small business owners have a hard time separating business income versus, their personal income. And so there's a change in accounting there that they might have to look at and say, okay, what we're coming in now is different than what was coming in for the business. And so, you might not be able to do an itemized deduction at that point. You might have to do standard deductions like most people that aren't self-employed. And so that's one of the things that they have to look at. It might change taxable brackets for them because they were able to write all that off prior. And now they just get to use the standardized deduction, which is still healthy. But again, what we talk about a little bit with tax planning on some of our clients is that our opinion is that, when the tax law goes away in 2026, that standardized deduction that we're receiving right now goes away probably in a big way. And so therefore, that might change tax brackets for them. So we have to help them plan when they get away from that type of tax shelter, if you want to call it, in retirement. That may be something that we have to look at because taxes might be a bigger role in their retirement. So that's some of the things that we always look at with them when they're looking at those.
So when we come back, we're going to talk about exit strategies for small business owners. Nolan brought it up, and it's certainly a challenge. So before we do that, we've got about a minute and a half left in this segment, Mindy. The Dream Focused Wealth Plan that you brought up, can you kind of explain a little bit about how you put it all together? Because you're kind of the CFO, your Chief Financial Officer. If I came in to see you about my retirement, I would be the CEO because it's my hopes and dreams, but I don't understand this world. How does a Dream Focused Wealth Plan kind of put it all together?
So the next thing is most folks want to be able to go to one spot and take a look at what does income look like? Oh gosh, now what are taxes going to look like? And how can we efficiently maybe set up a tax plan? And when and how and why am I going to draw Social Security? And then how am I going to pay for Medicare or my healthcare plan? And which plan are we picking? Who's helping me decide this? And then also from the investment side, Nolan and I spend most of our time with folks that are in or nearing retirement. So it's not about them hitting that home run or that big, huge gain. It's about living a substantial and very comfortable style of living inside of retirement. So when bumps in the road and hiccups come up, they are very well diversified in what's going to happen to give them some protection and peace of mind, and just making sure that, they're going to do the things that they said that were goals for them inside of retirement. So we're going to fit together in the Dream Focused Wealth Plan what their investments look like. Where is their income coming from? How do we filter which healthcare plans will they have, and how are they going to pay for those costs of healthcare? I encourage all of you to look at our website at wealthmichigan.com, call us for a visit. We start with a discovery meeting, and we start planning and paving the pathway for you to help working together and monitor what that would look like for you.
So there's no doubt small business owners face some unique challenges in preparing for retirement. Mindy and Nolan are going to walk you through how to prepare an exit strategy and then some of the other factors you need to consider as you head into retirement. Stay with us. This is Wealth Michigan with the McIntoshes. Mindy and Nolan back right after this.
Of all the questions you get asked every day, this is one you shouldn't ignore. How much money in your 401k or IRA is actually yours? Not what its current value is, but how much of it will end up in your pocket, not the government's. Remember, you still might owe taxes on that money. Make sure you aren't overpaying. Keep every dollar you're entitled to. Look, I know it's confusing, it's complicated, and it's definitely not fun. That's why at McIntosh & Associates, we work with tax professionals to help make sure you aren't paying more in taxes than your fair share. It's your money. You deserve to know what's at stake. Call our team at McIntosh and Associates today. Get started. 877-222-8849. 877-222-8849. Don't do the IRS any favors. 877-222-8849. Firm offers insurance services and may not give tax advice. Investment advisory services offered only by duly registered individuals through AE Wealth Management, LLC.
Schedule your complimentary first visit with the McIntoshes right now. Call 877-222-8849. That's 877-222-8849.
Glad you're with us today for Wealth Michigan with the McIntoshes. Mindy McIntosh started the company back in 2004. Nolan McIntosh waited till Mindy had the company in a nice place before he'd said, I'm tired of helping people be in better shape, be an athletic trainer. I've got a master's, a doctorate. I've been overseas. I've done it all. But no, Nolan is here to help you as well. Great company. You want to find out more, go to the website, wealthmichigan.com, wealthmichigan.com. I'm Mark Elliott. All right, we're talking small business owners. And there's no question, Mindy, that McIntosh and Associates is considered a small business. The challenges that people face, and Nolan brought this up in the last segment, and I would think, and especially with all the pandemic and all of that, where over a third of small businesses went out of business. They couldn't survive. And now the challenge is, how do we get people to come in and work if we are that kind of an employer? Sometimes you're just your own guy, your own boss or whatever, and you do your own thing, and you're the only employee. And so there are options, whether you have no employees, it's just you, or you have under 100 employees. I mean, there's options on creating retirement plans, and Mindy you went through that in the last segment. But exit strategy, that is something I would think, because my guess is if you guys would actually ever retire and one of your daughters or two or three of your daughters take over the business, that we're probably, as a small business owner, we're never really out. You'd always want to make sure things are going okay with your clients and the girls are doing well and all of that. But there are a lot of companies that you have to decide, am I going to sell it? What am I going to do with it? How does it continue on? And if it is going to continue on, what are some of the options here? This is a big deal, isn't it? Exit strategy?
It's a very big deal, and unfortunately, we see a lot of folks that just don't plan ahead, and there's different reasons for that. And one big thing is we want to make sure that we're all planning early, so we don't just throw something in place and make it an emotional decision, right? So, as anything else, having a plan and thinking ahead for that exit strategy, and that might not just be for you to say, okay, the business is closing, or it's selling, or what are the goals for that transition? And depending on the size, it could be, looking at, how we're trying to build and mold our young children to eventually maybe they're the ones that actually step into business and take the business over. And you're right. Then we'd be alongside them, guiding them, helping them. How does the transition look? But it could also be, brand new owners, or you're liquidating. So what does taxes look like, and how does that create new income? And it even could be, what if something unexpected happens to you earlier than later? How are you leaving your staff, your client, your family? And so these are all things to think about of what that strategy needs to look like. And it can be for different stages of your life, but it's really imperative that, if you've built something and worked really hard at something, and you have, consumers or clientele, they're relying on you to make sure that you have that plan. And so you owe it to yourself and your family to make sure that we're taking a look at a good business valuation now, to have ideas so you can think about it and really decide what works best for you.
So, Nolan, if you were going to sell the business, for example, if a small business owner wants to sell their business, I'm thinking that, all the blood, sweat, and tears that we've ever had is into the business. And that's probably one of the challenges in retirement, because small business owners tend to put some of their profits, they put them back into the business, right, to help the business. So if they were evaluating how much their business is worth, they might be a little bit higher than what it's actually worth. How do we figure out the real value of a small business?
Yeah, well, sometimes that takes an outside source to be able to evaluate that. And every industry is different, right? Sometimes businesses have multipliers. Some of them just say it's worth what the equipment in the warehouse is worth, basically. So it really does depend on industry, what industry they're in. It depends on clientele, what their base is. It depends on possibly, client retention. And so those are some of the numbers that, sometimes business owners really have to get into the nitty gritty to really evaluate. But the hard part is, as you said it, they put their blood, sweat, and tears in it, and the emotional connection they have with that business sometimes drives what they think the value is, and unfortunately, that's not always the case. And sometimes it's timing, right? I mean, if you would have sold a business back in 2007 through 09, you probably didn't sell for very much. Where if you would have sold it maybe a couple of years ago before COVID, well, man, you might have got a really good price for that business at that point in time. And so it ebbs and flows. That's part of it. Timing is part of that. And then obviously taking the emotional bias out of that. So that's why sometimes taking an outside consultant, really looking in, and obviously you're going to have to pay, right, for them to do that, but at least giving you some idea of ballpark figures of what is my business evaluated at. And then from that standpoint, you can figure it out, right? I mean, if you're going to sell it to one of your kids, or if you're going to stay on as an employee, or if you're waiting for the right time to be able to sell it, then at least you have a base and saying, okay, this is what it was worth back in 2022. Now it's 2024. I'm looking at selling it. Is it somewhere logistically that I can say, yes, it's worth that much? Or, hey, we're going to take a 5-year payout from, the child that's taking over. And the other thing that we have to look at too is, sometimes it's smart to look at it from a taxation standpoint. So if you sell a business, you're going to have possibly capital gains you have to pay on whatever it is you sold that business for, right, from what it was to now. And so it's one of those things that we have to look at from a taxation standpoint. Do we not want to do that? Because sometimes it's best from a taxation standpoint. It's kind of like winning the lottery. If you won that all in one lump sum, you don't get all of that. So it might be something that we want to do is, even if you're selling it off to somebody that's not in the family, that we're doing it over a 5-year payout or something of that nature to help with taxations from that. So that's why we always want to look at it from all angles, make sure that we're doing it not as just like I tell clients, from an emotional response in the market, we do not want to have an emotional response in selling our business and not get too tied to it. If we have an outside source that tells us this is what it's worth, sometimes it can break those ties emotionally and help you kind of look at it from a logistics standpoint. So again, I'd love to be able to sit down with people. We do this pretty consistently actually lately with small business owners and helping them walk through that. But give us a call, 877-222-8849. Love to be able to sit down and kind of give you what Mindy and I have thought of, and that may help you with selling your own business.
Mindy, and I would think that, you started your company, McIntosh & Associates, in 2004. So if you ever do retire, I would think that you have certainly an emotional tie-in to your business because you started it. You're proud of what you've accomplished. And I would think that's a challenge for small business owners or CEOs of companies when they get into retirement to be able to let it go a little bit. I mean, I think that's we always talk about the transition from working to retirement. Some make that transition very easy. Some make it a little bit more difficult. I would think a small business owner would be a harder transition into retirement, which is why I would imagine probably a lot of them never really retire. I've got a buddy of mine that was friends of my parents. He's in his mid-80s and still has his little Mexican restaurant, and he's there every day. And, he probably doesn't need to be, but it's, he's put his heart and soul into this place, blood, sweat, and tears and all that. There's an emotional tie. So I would think the transition into retirement is a little bit more difficult for those types of people.
It is, and it's good that they talk about it too, because, if we're doing something from a retirement or income standpoint, and they're going to continue working and maybe still, be on payroll or drawing a wage and what have you, we want to make sure that we don't implement some of their income strategies when they don't need it. And I also think, even just taking a look at the business valuation side, they really need to look at, what is the profit and loss? What is the, true net revenue coming in? And if that's all that they've done is been up, went to the office early, stayed there late, or, I have many clients that are even in their 70s and they still like to, from time to time, maybe a few days a week, be involved more than, maybe what they even thought they would be from their working years, because that's just what they like to do. That's what they enjoy. That's their sense of purpose. So it's good to walk through that together so we know logistically and, reality wise, what actually probably is going to happen and how do they feel good every day. If they still want to be able to be there and work some, great. And, that's a different than, hey, I put in my, 60-day notice and I'm leaving my job and boom, that's it. Right? So it's definitely different. These small business owners just have a different mindset a lot of times when it comes to work and what they're doing, and, that's their baby. So we need to make sure that we treat that differently too through their retirement timeline.
Yeah, so 877-222-8849 is the number to talk with Mindy Nolan and the team at McIntosh & Associates. This is a big deal. I mean, if you have a small business, there's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it. How are you going to leave if that's what you're looking to do? And how do you do it where you actually feel okay about everything? 877-222-8849. Final advice, either one of you. Any final advice? We've got like 40 seconds left. Any final advice for small business owners, maybe the next step?
Well, I think, again, it's one of those things that when you're thinking about that, there should be some excitement there for you to be able to get through there. So, again, mentally, it's the biggest hurdle, I think, for small business owners to get over. And Mindy and I, we're in our 40s. And so, we both think we're probably going to work for another 30 years. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. It's one of those things, depending on what happens. But it's interesting because we talk about it, but then there might be something just like COVID that turns the tide and says, hey, we need to look at that. The biggest thing is making sure you're getting in contact with somebody, particularly, obviously, us, because we're on the radio. And if you're listening to us, we'd love to be able to meet with you. But just get in touch with somebody so that way we can walk through that with you. So that way there's no guessing game anymore. Because in small businesses, sometimes you're making some guesses and making some risks. We want to try and help de-risk that as much as we can so that way you can walk through retirement nice and confident.
Yeah, absolutely. 877-222-8849 if you'd like to chat with the team at McIntosh & Associates. Whether you're a small business owner or you're just getting ready for retirement, the time to do it would be now. Let's get started trying to figure out where you are, what kind of tweaks need to be made, or if you've already won the game and you could have retired 2 years ago. That certainly happens as well. 877-222-8849, and you can always find out more on the website, wealthmichigan.com. Back with our final segment right after this with Mindy and Nolan. This is Wealth Michigan with the McIntoshes.
To learn more about the team at McIntosh & Associates, check out their website anytime at wealthmichigan.com.
Welcome back to Wealth Michigan with the McIntoshes, Mindy and Nolan. You can find out more just by going to the website. They're here to help you come up with a plan for your retirement. It's called the Dream Focused Wealth Plan. So the discovery meeting is where it starts. It's to find out about your hopes, dreams, bucket list items, what do you want to do, and then figure out where the income's going to come from. And the Dream Focused Wealth Plan that Mindy and Nolan can set up for you. And it is about you. Everybody's situation is different. Their hopes and dreams are different. So if you'd like to learn more, give them a call, 877-222-8849, 877-222-8849. And you can always find out more on the website, wealthmichigan.com. All right, Nolan, we got a whole lot of things going on. We hit January of 2022, and we've had a long run. Obviously, the pandemic made a little 5-week bump in the old market, but since March of 2009, the market's kind of been rolling along. Well, we hit 2022. Inflation's up, possible war, Ukraine, Russia. Well, when things happen, the market gets a little jumpy, a little nervous. Where should we be right now if we're concerned about market volatility? Because I know one of your things is how much risk are you taking? Is it the right amount? Are we not taking much? And I would think most people with 401k and IRA retirements, that they're probably taking more risk than they even realize.
Yeah, and I, specifically had just talked with a client not too long ago, and I said, did you change anything that we had talked about, last May? And they said, no. I said, are you okay with where you're at for risk? And they said, well, I had my number, and I was at a certain number in December, and I really liked that, and I just kind of kept it riding, and now I've lost a significant portion of my 401k because I kept it allocated the way instead of, taking some recommendations. So I think that's the biggest part, is that the hard part on 401ks is that nobody's doing that for you. Obviously here we're actively watching it. We're making changes based on what we're seeing for market trends and try and get ahead of certain things that we see coming down the pipeline. And so we try and do as much as what we call asymmetrical investing. Can't guarantee anything, right? But we try and do as much asymmetrical investing as we can, where we're participating more in the upside than we are on when it goes on the downside. And so, that's some of the strategies that we always use. And then from the holistic approach, when I'm talking, I've gotten a couple of emails and people are like, you're probably so busy because the phone's probably ringing off the hooks because people are worried. I'm like, actually, no. I mean, really, the phone is not. Number one, we're in constant communication with our clients. So they know what's ahead of them. Even if they're watching the news, we're telling them, okay, this is what we see happening. So we're not making emotional responses. So we're in constant communication with our clients because we believe the best time for us to get in contact with our clients is not when the market's doing what it did in 2021, but when the market's doing what it's doing now, because that's where we make irrational decisions. So number one, communication. Number two, the biggest thing is that we look at long-term growth strategies. We're not looking at snapshots in time. As uncomfortable as it is right now, this is a snapshot. So it's one of those things that from a long-term growth strategy, if we're doing what we're supposed to do, and again, we want to be in the risk spectrum that we want to be in, so that's why we make sure we ask those questions when, even when they initially come in, and then obviously always asking that question when we're in contact with them, are we okay with the risk? And so it's one of those things that making sure long-term growth strategies are on our mind instead of snapshots in time. So I say it before, is that people, when they go to the casino, they always talk about how much they won, but not how much it costs to get there. It's kind of opposite with sometimes with clients. They always look at kind of how the market goes down, but they never remember that they have all this long-term standing growth in their accounts. So it's one of those things that we always have to remind clients to make sure that we're doing things. And if we need change risk, and it does happen sometimes, people get uneasy feelings and how their market accounts are going up and down. So we need to change risk. And so maybe we need to change our approach. And so that's why it's important that we're, contacting clients, they're contacting us, and making sure we have that holistic approach. So that way some are involved in the market, some are not involved in the market. So that way we don't have to worry about everything in the market. And that's the biggest thing for us. And if you feel that way, then by all means, we want to sit down with you and go over a risk strategy with you and say, hey, at least from an education standpoint, this is where you're at. If you're comfortable with that, then you can stay there. If not, then maybe we need to make some changes. And Mindy and I, a lot of times we'll meet with clients, and the people that got them there, not that this is wrong, but they've done a good job. But now the strategy needs to change if we're getting closer to retirement. So that's why it's our niche market. Now we need to change strategies. And if, the current person they're working with can't do that, then we need to make a change and help with getting into that next phase of life. So 877-222-8849. Love to be able to go over that with you. wealthmichigan.com. Tons of resources there for you to be able to look at. But again, 877-222-8849 if some of these things are kind of scaring you with all the market volatility we've seen.
McIntosh & Associates Incorporated is an independent financial services firm that utilizes a variety of investment and insurance products. Investment advisory services offered only by duly registered individuals through AE Wealth Management, LLC, AEWM. AEWM and McIntosh & Associates Incorporated are not affiliated companies. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. McIntosh & Associates Incorporated is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during the show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by McIntosh & Associates Incorporated.